Kenway! Kenway! 69 south! I'll see down!
Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. We're super excited to bring you Beyond the Badge. Now, this is a podcast dedicated for first responders, frontline workers, whether you're a police officer, firefighter, you're a veteran, you're a nurse, EMT, anything of that nature. This is a podcast especially for you. We're talking about trauma. We're talking about mental health. We're talking about relationships, families, marriages, everything that used to be taboo, everything that we used to keep to ourselves, we're talking about now. And the awesome part about it is you have three people from totally different parts of the country doing totally different jobs. And the only reason that we're all together, that we all met, was because of one thing. We're all currently going through our own mental health journey. So with that being said, we all met in Utah at the Chateau. Colleen, bring it from there. Tell us what really Chateau is and really how this all came to be.
Yeah, so for everyone who doesn't know, I'm Colleen Fagan. I am a registered nurse. I work as a neonatal ICU and pediatric nurse here in New England. And I ended up in the Chateau beginning of February through March. And the Chateau is honestly a place for first responders and those going through any sort of mental health journey. So PTSD, grief, trauma, substance use, you name it, they are going to treat it. And so I ended up finding the Chateau as a result of one of my friends who was there, and he actually was there with Steve. And so Steve and I were able to connect my first day. That when I walked up those 15 steps, Steve was one of the first people to greet me. And he and I hit it off, and we kind of had similar stories in a lot of ways, but also our story was very different. But the matter of fact is that honestly, without these people, without both Nate and Steve, I wouldn't be where I am today. The whole part of a mental health journey is the people that surround you and the people who walk the path. Like someone once said that we actually were in treatment with, they can't walk the path for you, but they can walk next to you. And whether you're going through trauma or a loss or something like that, we can walk beside you. And that's what I'm hoping that we'll get out of this podcast, Beyond the Badge. So
my journey goes back to January was when I showed up at the Chateau, and my finding the Chateau was as a result of hitting rock bottom. I was several months before that, I was deployed overseas in the Middle East. And that was where I hit my rock bottom from a mental health standpoint. I, at the time, didn't know what was going on. All I knew was that I felt absolutely horrible. I got to the point where I just wasn't sure that I was going to make it home. And that's part of what made it so scary, was that I had nobody to my right and left. I had nobody to talk to. And so, I am blessed to have made it home. I've been home now for a year. So my recovery journey started at the Chateau after about 4 months after I got home. And it was probably the biggest blessing in my life. I had heard so many negative things about residential treatment, and the Chateau basically shattered all of those vibes and negative energy. And it was life-changing for me. So that was really where I began my mental health recovery. And that's where we met Colleen, absolutely. And through you, I met Nate. And, I'm just really excited to take this topic of mental health out of the closet, bring it front and center for our vet heroes and first responders, and be a resource, be a voice to a topic that's often not talked about.
Yeah, no doubt. And that's the crazy part is, we all come from different backgrounds. We've all done different jobs. We've all seen totally different things. We each have trauma from totally different aspects of our life, but being in these professions that we are in, I will say afforded us the ability, which sounds kind of funny when it's mental health, to go get help, to go get treatment. And that's exactly what the podcast is for. They train us to run into burning buildings, but they don't teach you what to do when you get burned, right? And that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to lift the lid off of those unspoken things. We're going to talk about the reality of you should expect to have mental health issues. We're going to break the stigma of even what that word mental health is and talk about the different coping strategies that we use, that we've learned, that we've been taught through different struggles ourselves. The best part about this is none of us are healed by any means, right? We're still going through our journey each and every day. I'll tell you, just last week over the 4th of July, I didn't get out of bed for 3 days. And that's exactly how my journey goes. Is I have several good days and then I have some bad days and it fucking sucks, but we get up and we keep moving, and that's exactly what we do. And what makes it easier to get up when you get kicked down is people like you guys making sure that the people you have in your circle for your journey are the exact people that are going to help carry you through it.
You're so right, Nate. And I'm going to call myself out here for a minute. Right before we were about to hop on this to record our first episode, I said, hey guys, I don't think I'm going to make it. I just had a really tough therapy session and I just don't want to do it. And what was your response, Nate?
I was like, fuck yeah, you are living the episode. You're living exactly right now what we want to talk about. So I'm not going to let you go crawl in bed, which I'm sure you wanted to, which I would have wanted to. I couldn't do what you're doing because I'd have been like, heck no. But I said, if you're going through it right now because of your journey, I think that's the perfect time to jump in front of the microphone and basically just go over what you went through today and how that's helping you through your real journey.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, today was just a hard day because so the healing journey is not linear. There's not going to just be all right, you're going to do step A, B, C, D, and all the way to Z. You're going to hop around, you're going to have a good day, you're going to have a bad day, you're going to take 2 steps forward, you're going to take 3 steps back, and it's going to be that back and forth. And I think for me today was kind of just a hard day where I'm exhausted. I did a bunch of really tough therapy homework assignments that were bringing stuff up that I'd already thought I processed, and then realizing, oh, actually I didn't. I need to address those things in order to continue to move forward. And so I think one of the things that we talked about towards the end of my therapy session is, okay, so what are you going to do when you go home right now? What are you going to do to go home and cope with what we just talked about and all of those things? And immediately I went to all of the things that I do on a day-to-day basis to cope. That's EFT tapping, ice baths, meditation, breathing techniques, all of those things that 6 months ago, 9 months ago, I never would have done. I was just like, oh yeah, meditation, that puts me to sleep. I'm not doing that. Deep breathing, yeah, that puts me to sleep. I'm not doing that. And so I think what's super important for everyone to know is the healing journey is not linear. And on your bad days, you just got to keep fighting and know that you're not in this alone. I know that I can call up Nate or call Steve or call any other of my dozens of friends that I've met through treatment and through recovery, and they're going to answer that phone call and they're going to talk to me, because in this battle, we're not alone.
No doubt. And I think too, to kind of break that stigma of the mental health is I don't know about you, Steve, but I've never been shot. Thank God, I'll knock on wood. I've never shot anybody. I've been on scene at a few shootings, but it doesn't have to just be some crazy, horrific, rated R movie scene out of, Sicario or whatever it is, that gives you this mental health, right? It's literally years and years and years. So about me, I've been a police officer 14 years. You've gone to how many dead bodies or car accidents or babies dead or pulled kids out of the river or 11-year-olds getting shot in the back of the head. Yes, I got to go there and help these people, but not understanding until now, after the fact, that because I helped somebody, I hurt myself at the same time by not knowing how to process those things. And I think that's what Chateau did for me, is to allow me to understand, you didn't do anything wrong. You should be expected to have these thoughts, feelings, whatever it is, because it's not normal for normal. I saw a thing on Facebook, Steven, I'll let you jump. The average person has 3 traumatic events in their life. And it was we had on average 40 a year. To compound it and compound it and compound it, of course, it's going to happen.
Yeah, you summed it up perfect, Nate. I often share this equation of, be it from our veterans or our first responders, you do, 6 months of basic training, a basic police academy, fire academy, and they teach you how to do all of the things, but what they don't teach you is how to process and deal with trauma, how to process and deal with mental health. And I think my story is fairly similar to you. My mental health journey manifested a year ago, but it was what I learned out at Chateau is it was building for the last 23 years. It started when I was a rookie out of the police academy, and on my first day, I went to a 15-year-old who had committed suicide in his bathroom. And, at the time I shook it off like that. It was just that was the job, right? And what I think the biggest thing that I learned at Chateau is that it's no one experience. It is a compilation of experiences, and eventually that scale for me, it just tipped, and it happened to tip when I was overseas and I had no resources. I had nobody to my right and left, and I absolutely crashed. So I think that was the biggest thing I took away from the Chateau is just sort of this, mountain, and it takes time to build and it takes time to get better. And that's something I struggle with quite a bit. I can speak for myself and say that I have good days and bad days. Till about 3 weeks ago, thought I was on a pretty good track. I had started some new alternative therapies, share with you guys on another session. But about 2, 3 weeks ago, I started feeling a little bit off. And to Colleen's point of healing and recovery not being linear, personally for me, it's like I took 3 or 4 steps back in the last couple of weeks. And so it's kind of packaging myself up, rejiggering the meds and the therapies and the things like that, and just trying it again. And just one day at a time, one foot in front of the other.
And see how much growth that is, because I don't know about you, for me, when that would have happened prior to the knowledge I have, I'd have been in my basement, drinking every night, yelling at my kids to get away from me, being rude to my wife, scared and not understanding, right? And now we're at a point where, like, we just have an understanding that if something's off, how do I fix it, rather than be scared of it. And for me, for so long, I was just so scared of the feelings I was having and not understanding what it really was. So I was trying to hide.
Well, and I think to that point too, fear honestly is what drives us to our bad days. And at least that's the case for me. So it's like when we're scared of something, that's when we start to let all of those doubts creep in. Because when we're on a good path, we're saying like, okay, these are the things we know we need to do these things. And yeah, sometimes we'll still have a bad day. But when we allow our fear to drive us, we end up kind of changing the narrative around it. And it's for me, I was so scared during all of my trauma that I actually hid it all. I shoved it in the back of the closet and slammed that door and didn't want to let that fear, the trauma, everything that I was experiencing come out. And so I taught myself not to feel those things. And so I would go to a bad call or something like that, and I would shove it all into my backpack and not bring it home with me. And in reality, I was bringing it home and it was just continuing to pile up and pile up and pile up. And in first responder professions, in military professions, they train us how to respond to the worst day of someone's life. But what they don't train us to do is to come home and to be okay with it, and to be healthy for us and to be healthy for our spouses and our partners and our kids and our families. And I think that that's a lot of what came to my recollection and like my realization when I was going through it and I had my worst days, because I've been in therapy since 2022. I was like, yeah, no, I'm doing it. I'm doing the therapy. I'm processing the things. And then one event that ended up really turning into dozens and countless events made me realize, nope, I'm not the person that I truly am. And I want to be able to show up better for not only myself, but for my family too.
So I think that's exactly why Beyond the Badge came to fruition, right? We built the podcast, to put a mic in front of people that have pain, to talk about the stories and the calls that impact you even when you go to bed, the calls that make you question, should you go put your uniform on tomorrow, but you got to do it because that's your job, right? So I'm super excited that I get to be part of this journey with the three of you, not only the podcast journey, but you guys being part of my mental health journey as well. I'm just super fortunate to have both of you in my corner.
I gotta share with you. I'm also thankful to have both of you. And one thing that I struggled with, and I still struggle with, is this idea of, and I know you guys will both understand it from the Chateau, but the shame associated with the feelings and the diagnosis. So, like all of the symptoms and the shame that's associated with that, that is certainly something that I struggled with and why I got so bad while I was overseas. And it is still something, even with now a year of multiple different types of therapy, I still struggle with it. However, this podcast, when the both of you approached me about it, it was something that I talked about with one of my therapists of, it is also helping me to bring a voice to something that I affiliate and associate with shame. I shouldn't be feeling these things. And so I'm just really blessed to continue to be able to work on me, but also to amplify the voice for the community.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think we could do full episodes in the future about just that, the shame, guilt, betrayal. Like entire episodes can be done just on those 3 words.
Absolutely.
I think it's honestly so important for us to be able to continue to bring a voice to the pain, to the healing, to the truth, and to the stories that are behind the people that are wearing the badges, the people who are showing up for us and that are showing up alongside us. Because Steve said there's so much shame associated with that. And I think it's very much, people feel a lot of shame and embarrassment around admitting that they're struggling. And it doesn't matter if you've been on the job 5 minutes or 50 years, like you're still going to have trauma. And we can't compare ourselves. And I think that that's one of our biggest things is it's like, oh, well, I've only been on the force for 3 years and this guy's been on for 15. Like he definitely has more trauma than I do. So I shouldn't experience anything. But the thing is, like, you can't compare. You can't say like this person has worse trauma than I do, because we all have our own trauma. We all process differently. We all experience things in a different way. And I think we're not here to shame the badge. We're not here to shame the professions. We're just here to show the cost that these roles take on our lives and how we're going to take our lives back and how we're going to be able to continue the jobs that we do, or maybe we find new jobs. But regardless, it's all about finding our way back to ourselves.
Yeah. And I think if you've got a badge, carried a pager, got the tones to go off, flown in the mission, this is exactly the space for you. And I just want to say, first off, welcome to the conversation. Welcome to our community. And most importantly, man, welcome to Beyond the Badge. This is just a snippet of what we're going to dive into in later series. We're going to get really focused on some stuff and dive in and really just, talk about real life stuff. Maybe it's an hour on grief or it's 40 minutes on the feeling of shame. But those are real things, not only that we feel, and I know you guys feel that are watching, that sometimes it's just really hard to, be brave enough to even say those things out loud, even to our own self, let alone to somebody else. So I think Beyond the Badge is going to be the perfect spot for anybody, including family members. If you have a family member who's a first responder and you're seeing some of these things in them, they're starting to isolate a little bit more, be a little bit more snippy, or don't want to talk about stuff. This is for you too, because you can learn about what they're going through. And not only that, we are learning what we are putting our families through, not only just us mentally, it has a cost on our families, right? So it's going to be so good to have this conversation with you guys and keep it going and just educate and talk about everything. Thanks for tuning in, guys. This is our first episode of Beyond the Badge. As we continue this series, we're going to be interviewing other first responders, family members, and such. So we're super thankful to be able to bring that to you.
Join us next week where we're going to talk about what happens when your shift or deployment ends, but the weight of it doesn't.
We served, we sacrificed, and now it's time to break that silence. We're trying to let our stories that we carry with us find a home. And in our community, we're going to heal, and we're going to heal in this community that we're growing. So this is Beyond the Badge.
Get away! Get away! Take the gun and blow! I'll shoot you out!